the hour. It's your boy D. I'm here. And, it's Monday. Each and every Monday, we are here, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sports rap on He's 100 Radio. It looks like I'm going to be solo today. One of my partners is having some trouble, some issues. And just to give some news updates, before we get into the show, people, be careful if you are out and about today. I have gotten several flash flood warnings through my phone all morning so far. So if you can avoid flooded areas, please do. If you have elderly, like we say, when the temperatures are extremely high, check on your elderly, check on your people. If you don't really need to be out in this nonsense, do not. Like I said, the floods, and they will get you because they will pop up on you. I encountered a couple earlier today en route taking my son to day camp. So I know exactly what's going on out there. So if you have to be out, be careful, be safe, and try to avoid the flood areas if you can. One of my partners, Frank, is tuned in. I see he's tuned in. So we'll try and bring him in a little bit later on the live feed. We are also live right now on Facebook. Sports Rap Radio Show is here. We live. So tune in. And as always, each and every Monday, we give you our scores and recaps from the weekend. So we got some baseball scores we got for you. And we've got some WNBA. And I'm also going to give you the football scores since football season is upon us. Even though it's only preseason, I'm going to give you the scores from Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday's games as well. So here we go. We're going to kick off with our Sunday baseball scores. The Phillies fall to the Padres 9-3. The Red Sox defeat the Orioles 4-1. The Rangers fall to the Yankees 7-2. And like I mentioned, my boy Lynch on the first live feed, Lynch Mob, is tuned in. I'm sure he's happy about that. Yankees win. The Tampa Bay Rays fall to the Blue Jays 2-1. The Mets defeat the Marlins 4-3. The Twins fall to the Tigers 4-2. The Diamondbacks defeat the Reds 9-2. The Brewers fall to the Braves 7-8 or 8-7. And if you need to know, the Braves are, I think, a half a game or maybe one game behind the Phillies in first place in the NL East. So we're hoping that the Phillies can keep a hold on that lead going into the playoffs. The Seattle Mariners defeat the world champion Astros 4-3. The Indians fall to the White Sox The Indians defeat the White Sox, 9-7. The Cardinals defeat the Royals 8-2. The Dodgers fall to the Rockies 4-3. The Pirates fall to the Giants 4-3 as well. The Oakland A's defeat the Angels 8-7, and the Washington Senators fall to the Cubs 4-3. Those are your MLB scores for yesterday. And just to talk a little bit about that Phillies game, I see the Phillies got bombed 9-3, and I was actually looking at some of that game yesterday. When the last time I checked it, it was 5-0. So I'm actually a little happy that they scored a couple runs to start or make it look like it would be a presentable game. But ultimately, the Padres scored 4 more runs and then ended up 9-3. So like I said, when I mentioned the Braves score, hopefully the Phillies can hold on to this lead in first place, how tight it is, and get into the playoffs and get a good seed and maybe make some noise in the playoffs. We move on to our WNBA scores from Sunday. The Dream defeat the Liberty 86-77. The Sky fall to the Sun 82-75. The Wings fall to the Mystics 93-80. The Mercury defeat the Sparks 86-78. And the Storm defeat the Lynx 81-72. And also in other WNBA news, the Wings have fired their head coach Fred Williams following reports of an altercation with the team's CEO. In other basketball news as well, Carmelo Anthony has apparently decided to sign with the Rockets And it's a real funny story because he is now electing to come off of the bench for the Rockets. And if correct me if I'm wrong, just a few weeks ago, when all of this started about him being traded from OKC to Atlanta, he was saying that he would come off the bench when he was ready. So apparently he's ready. Again, him going to Houston is something that I guess he wanted, something that Chris Paul lobbied for, since they are good friends. But we will definitely get into that when basketball season approaches in about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, just about. And we will definitely talk about that because there's a lot of conversation that can be had about free agency, one, and certain free agents and where they sign and who they signed with, who they decided that they wanted to play with. Finally, in our updates this morning, we have our NFL scores from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And Thursday's games, the Eagles fall to the Steelers 31-14. The Panthers defeat the Bills 28-23. The Browns defeat the Giants 20-10. The Bears fall to the Bengals 30-27. The Saints defeat the Jaguars 24-20. The Bucks beat the Dolphins 26-24. The Houston Texans defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 17-10. The Cowboys fall to the Niners 24-21. I know that's going to make Frank happy. The Colts defeat the Seahawks 19-17. Those games were all Thursday. 2 games on Friday. The Falcons fall to the Jets 17-zip. The Lions fall to the Raiders 16-10. Then there were 2 more games on Saturday. The Vikings demolished the Broncos 48-28. And the Chargers fall to the Cardinals 24-17. Now, since we're here and we're talking football, and we have these football scores right now, getting back to the Eagles game, 31-14 to the Steelers. Okay. And 49ers 24-21 over the Cowboys. So a lot at stake, or a lot of conversation can be had with those 2 games, with those teams, with 2 of those particular teams, because like I said, both of my partners, Frank and Baldy, so shout out to both of them. And unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. But shout out to both of them because they are 49ers fans. Myself and our 4th partner, the missus, is our Eagles fans. So right now, it's a split. Myself and the missus have bragging rights around the station, around the show, because the Eagles are currently the world champs until someone beats them. So hence, again, we have bragging rights. But all the while, the Eagles look good. Just to give you a recap, I was actually at the open practice on Saturday. I really like the tight end that they drafted, Mr. Goddard. He seems like he catches everything. He went out of practice early Saturday, but I saw this morning that he's fine. He will be back practicing today, so that's a good sign. I also liked some of the things I saw with Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas might get switched to safety because he's a bigger D-back and he likes the contact, likes the physical contact. So he may get moved to safety. And watching the game on Thursday, I kind of feel like safety could work better for him because of the 2 plays that he got burned on, the way he got burned. Just a little misjudgment, mistiming. And he also showed that he doesn't really have great recovery speed as far as if a receiver gets past him and him catching up to get himself back into the play. But with the coaching staff that I have been impressed with, especially last season, I think that they will find somewhere to place him, either safety or slot, somewhere that will utilize his talents and the things that he does well. Somewhat of a repeat of what they did with Nelson Aguilar, who somewhat had a breakout season after being moved around and expected to be a outside receiver under Chip Kelly, and coming in under Doug Peterson, he was still at that position, and then they made a change and moved him to the inside to the slot, and he had a significantly better year than his first year under Chip Kelly. So with that, and we're going to move right along. We're going to move, just keep this thing moving right along. And I want to, like I mentioned last week, we are going to try and cover as much of the NFL, every division as possible. Some of the divisions will be pretty brief. And, you know, we kicked off with the NFC East and the NFC West because we have stake in those as fans amongst the show. So now we move into the NFC North and the NFC South, and then we will begin next week with our pickup of the AFC. So looking at the NFC North, the teams in the division, the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, and the Detroit Lions. So, in my opinion, this division is, I think this year, going to be a tough division because Minnesota is good. I have to give them credit. They're good. They couldn't beat the Eagles, but they are good. Chicago is Chicago. We know what they are. The Lions have been performing better, so you kind of have to keep them in your rearview mirror, in your sights. And the talk of this division, I think, this year is really going to be the reemergence of the Green Bay Packers. They lost Aaron Rodgers for a long time last season, and things didn't go as expected. So I'm looking for a comeback season for them. I'm also looking for a comeback season from Mr. Rodgers, who I think has something to prove. And I think that's just because of his competitive nature and his ego, if you will, that he feels like he has something to prove because he wants to show everyone that if he had been playing, the team probably would have made the playoffs and it would have been better off for them. So as we look, the reporters of each team in the division have given their take on who they think will win the division. And it's a little crazy because, let's see, there's the reporter, the Vikings beat reporter is in agreement with myself, and he thinks that the Packers will win the division. I don't think the Packers are going to win the division, actually, so I can't say that I agree with that. I think the Vikings are going to, win the division again, but I think Green Bay is going to be right there, and it's probably going to come down to either a division game or a key NFC game late in the season that puts whoever into the top seed in that division. So the Vikings beat reporter thinks the Packers are going to win. The Vikings beat reporter thinks that the Packers are going to win. The Packers beat reporter thinks that the Vikings will win. The Chicago Bears beat writer believes that the Vikings will win as well. And the Detroit Lions beat writer also believes that the Vikings will win. So out of the four divisions, you've got 3 beat writers who think the Vikings will win, and 1 thinks that the Packers will win. And ironically, that 1 is the beat writer for the Vikings, who all of the other beat writers for teams in that division think will win the division. Now, real quickly, we're going to move along to the NFC South. The NFC South, and Frank thinks that the Packers are going to win the division. Not too sure about that. You know, like I said, I'm in with Aaron Rodgers, you know, the things that he does. But I just think that the Packers have a little bit of momentum. And, you know, to think of that, I'm not really sold on Kirk. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan. But I just think that that defense is going to be the biggest part of their success. And that defense is going to keep them and possibly win a few games for them. So that's why I think that Minnesota will repeat as the winner of that division. Yeah, Frank, I don't believe in Cousins either. Like I just said, I don't believe in him. But like I said, I think that defense is solid, very solid. And I think that they can do some things in that division and in the NFC. But as we know, the road to the Super Bowl for the NFC always. Now it comes through Philadelphia, so we will definitely.